Hey y'all, it's Steve, the guitar nut, the Rickaholic, the all-around good guy, if you will, even if you won't. If I look a little frazzled, it's likely because of, well, two things. One, the thermostat on the second level of our home went out, so we have no air conditioning on the second level, which means we are sleeping downstairs on the living room floor on a blow-up air mattress. The local heating and air guys can't make it here until Tuesday. Today is Friday, so we're making do. Additionally, I bought something for the show. It's the Zoom Q2N 4K camera, which is touted as the camera for YouTubers, podcasters, and media folk of all kinds. Actually, here's the unit. You might be interested to know that this is my second attempt at recording this particular video episode. I actually did the entire thing, went to the trouble of uploading it online, started to edit, found out that there was no audio. This is a problem, obviously. So, here I am again, looking a little frazzled, a little worse for wear, but you know what? It is what it is, as we always say, right? So anyhow, let's talk guitars, shall we? So the last episode about the Chickenbacker was pretty popular. You all seem to like it. Got a lot of comments, some questions, some suggestions, a lot of views. Interestingly enough, it seems that only 20% of the people viewing these videos are actually subscribing to the channel. So again, I'll make the usual plea. Like the video, like all the videos, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, comment below. That also makes a big difference, both to the algorithm and, you know, to the community, because that's what we have here is a community, right? So, fellow guitar nuts. So do all those things, and, you know, why not, right? We are a community, and I'm doing this for you. Certainly not doing it for the money because, well, there is none. Actually, it's not entirely true. There's a deficit of money, in fact. But it's all good. So, guitar news. Let's start with my personal news. This is being recorded on a Friday, which is the August 11th. Does that sound right? I believe it is. And yeah, it's hard to believe that half the year plus is over already. We're midway through August or approaching it. But every August around this time I get to feeling nostalgic because on August 10th of 1987, a whopping 35 years ago, I walked into a music store called Rubino's Music in Portage, Indiana, and walked out with this three-tone purple Gibson Explorer. Fun story. I walked out with it having paid off my layaway. I actually walked in the first time and put it on layaway September 18th of 1986. Yes, it took me 11 months to pay for this bad boy. My first ever brand new guitar at the time. I worked carnivals. I worked a hot dog cart one weekend. Mowed a lot of lawns. Did whatever I had to do to get this bad boy, and it's been through a lot of battle scars. The first 5 years I owned it, I didn't have a case. And thanks to Todd Poznansky, wherever he might be out there in the big world of YouTube and abroad, for hooking me up with a case back in the early 90s. It's all original. For the most part. Well, I say it's all original and tell you the parts that have changed, right? Because that's what we do. This is a replacement tailpiece, a TP6 fine tuner. I recommend these to anybody with a stop bar tune-o-matic arrangement, Gibsons or Gibson-like. They're gold. And pickups have been changed because the original Dirty Fingers, one of them actually just completely went open. It stopped working entirely. So I have a Seymour Duncan JB, or Jeff Beck as I call it, in the bridge, and a DiMarzio Eric Johnson in the neck. Now, I'm worthy of neither, judging by the endorsers here. But that's what I have, and it sounds great, and it plays great, and I'm just glad I never got rid of it, because there were plenty of times that I nearly did for various reasons, both stupid and not so stupid. But here it is. Also, in personal news, my beloved Grammar acoustic, built right here in Nashville, has been away from me for a year, having her neck reset. And lo and behold, it's finally back. And this might be my favorite acoustic guitar ever made. I'm not really a big acoustic guy, but the ones I have I really, really like. This is a one-of-a-kind, this particular nuclear avocado finish. As far as I know, they never made any others. They made a green burst that looks similar to these sides, but never anything like this top. And it's original. So, yeah, one of a kind. And it's finally back, and it plays and sounds great, so I'm pretty tickled about that. Thank you to Greg at Classic Axe Guitar Repair for taking care of that. So what else do I have to talk about? Let's see. More guitars. This channel started as Rickenbacker Anonymous. I know plenty of Rickenbacker enthusiasts are out there. They actually have news this week, which is something, because one thing people complain about with Rickenbackers, they never do anything new, right? Well, guess what? They did. This week, they released it's not their custom shop, they call it what their boutique. Up for auction is a double neck 620, 12 and 6 string, in a kind of a coral peach pink color. I'll try to include a picture of it either right here or perhaps right there. It'll be somewhere. And as I said, they're taking offers. It's being bid on basically in the boutique shop, so that's kind of interesting. They've also released a Noir, of course meaning black in French, version of the 620, a picture of which will be here, or whatever, which is pretty cool. That's a limited run, which usually means 25 examples. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's kind of cool. Pertinent to this episode and the last episode, those crafty guys over there in China decided there weren't enough models of Rickenbacker bass available, so they actually came up with one of their own. They stretched the 620. I'm sensing a theme here. The 620 seems to be the thing this time around. They stretched the 620 body and put the pickups all the way at the neck and all the way at the bridge in exactly the wrong places for tone, just like the Model 4005, which everyone complains about. Looked great, apart from being huge. Pickups from the wrong place. They did the same thing with this particular bass, but if you're curious, here's a picture of that. I got a chuckle out of it. I can't recommend you order one, but it's fun to look at. So let's see. In other guitar news, because, you know, let's face it, everything isn't Rickenbacker, as much as we might like it to be. This week, Epiphone by Gibson made a big announcement that they were putting out a new player series of guitars for beginners and people of smaller stature, or just anybody that wants to look like they're playing electric ukulele. These are like 4/5 size bodied Les Pauls and SGs, like a 22.5-inch scale length. And as I said, they're aimed at beginners and whatnot, but they are selling at a street price of $279, and they're calling them in your first forever guitar, you know, air quotes, claiming that they're made of real mahogany. They have very high quality pickups and hardware, and that these are not your usual junky beginner guitars. These are leaps and bounds above. And I actually did have a chance to pick one of each up and try them out at the Guitar Center in Las Vegas, where I happened to be last week. And well, the two that I picked up were set up kind of crappy, to be honest with you, but that's probably more to do with the fact that they came out of the box at Guitar Center and went straight to the floor, rather than anything to do with quality control itself. You know, Guitar Center is notorious for doing no setup work whatsoever. But I've seen several reviews already online from other YouTubers, and they're claiming that they're great. So that might be something to look into if you're interested. They also make great travel guitars, apparently. I personally bought a little bodied Steinberger for travel, which I intended to take with me on my trip to Las Vegas last week. Little backstory, my wife was there for a conference. I went along to write some music, locked myself in a hotel room, and did exactly that. But we were on Spirit Air, and Spirit wanted $60 each way for me to take that little Steinberger in a bag and stick it in the overhead compartment. So rather than do that, I told Spirit to stick it. That's, yeah, it is what it is. So anyway, what was I talking about? Oh, little Epiphones. Yeah, so look into those if that's something you're interested in, and if you've got a youngster at home that wants to start, they're definitely more friendly for small children, you know, both in scale length and in overall size, presumably in weight. The ones I picked up felt pretty light. So that is what it is. So the reason you all tuned in was the great clickbaity title, Did I Get Ripped Off? And the short answer is kind of. I had high hopes for Operation Chickenbacker, and I know many of you did as well. And even to the point where several of you sent in donations to help with the purchase, you know, and paid for about half the guitar, and the other half I came up with out of pocket. And we went over it last episode, at least a cursory, perfunctory, you know, quick once over. Here it is. I've now had a chance to spend some time with it. And yeah, it's not good. I wish I had better news, but let me go over exactly why. Let's start right out of the box. Even though it has a bound neck, the edges of the frets are razor sharp. You know, it happens, I guess. You know, we've all dealt with some sharp fret ends on guitars, but it's everywhere and it's bad. These were just, they simply weren't finished. And they're scratchy. It's crap fretwork, bottom line. Also, it doesn't play in tune, largely because the nut is incredibly high. Now again, you know, it can be popped off, it can be shaved down, which I will do eventually, I'm sure. But as it is now, it can't be played in tune because of the pressure at the first fret, which also means that the action's really high. If you finally get the action lowered at the bridge, you wind up with lower action here than here, which obviously isn't desirable either. Let's see, what else can we complain about? Talk about. The tuners seem okay, I suppose. The trapeze tailpiece is crooked, which actually starts to make sense when you realize that the bridge is also crooked. And the reason it's crooked is to compensate for the fact that the neck was mounted crooked. Now, it's not twisted. A twist insinuates this, you know, where the entire thing twists around. No, this was actually mounted incorrectly to where if you sight it down the neck, the treble side rides higher than the bass side. Now, fortunately, you know, Rickenbacker style bridges can compensate for that. You know, adjustable for each side, and I will, you know, take care of that. But kind of speaks of the overall quality. Let's see, what else? Electronics. Now, everybody expects to replace the electronics in a Chickenbacker, which is kind of a given. I did it in my number one, but they're usually at least usable for testing purposes. I can't even plug this in and give you guys a sound example because these pickups, I don't know if there's something wrong with them. I don't know what it is. The output is so low that even with my 15 watt all tube Ibanez TSA head turned completely up, this is barely audible through the speakers. You know, Rickenbacker toaster pickups are known for being somewhat low output, but we're talking about something entirely different here. We're talking about practically no sound whatsoever. On the finish, there are several areas, which not anything I could show you in the camera. I don't think it'd pick it up. I could try, but I don't think it'd be. Where it looks like handprints. And when I unboxed it, I assumed that that's exactly what they were. You know, some handprints and they'd polish off. Well, guess what? They don't polish off. There are actually spots where the finish reacted to the humidity and the styrofoam packaging, which happened to be touching on those spots and also on the back. And no, they're permanent, big, ugly spots in the finish. I complained to the builders at AliExpress, and they gave me a partial refund, which is better than nothing for my trouble, and suggested ways that I could try to polish these out, none of which were effective. Yeah, overall, it looks okay from a distance. Now, what will I do with the guitar? Well, I've got it now. Eventually I will file down the nut, get a couple of fresh emery boards and do the fret ends so that they're not lethal. I've got pickups. I've got tons of Rickenbacker style pickups, generic ones that I've purchased over the years for various projects and things. I'll swap all that out with the hope of wind up with something that's at least playable. It'll still be sub Epiphone or sub Squire quality, especially because, well, I told you it's hard to give you a sound example because of the nut. But even if I tune it to an open chord, it sounds awful. I don't know if there's loose bracing. I don't know if there is any bracing. I don't know what the story is, but whatever, the way it's built, it sounds horrid acoustically. And you know, it's true that an electric guitar that sounds great acoustically is only going to sound better with electronics, right? Well, the inverse is true as well. For whatever reason, the tone of this is just pretty much god awful. So at this point, it has very few saving graces. But I'm going to do what I can, and I'll keep you updated, and it'll be an ongoing project. I can only hope that our friend Tracy is having a much, much better experience with his Tom Petty knockoff 12-string. We'll know soon. He'll let us know. But overall, this has been quite a disappointment. And I could say that I'm upset about it, but I'm really not, because my main motivation for doing this was to save you from having this happen to you. Or, conversely, had this turned out to be great, I'd be giving all of you the order information so you can get one of your own. You know, as it is, I certainly can't recommend this builder. Oh, by the way, the refund they gave me didn't come as cash or, you know, go back on my credit card. No, it's actually a store credit for AliExpress for something else. Fortunately, it doesn't have to be from the same builder, because I wouldn't recommend this builder to anyone. And as best as I can tell, all of these that are listed on AliExpress from different builders are actually the same factory. So if you're looking and wondering, yeah, this is what you're going to get most likely. So hopefully I saved you the trouble. Now, brings us to the question. Many of you out there, I have no doubt, were considering ordering a chickenbacker. And maybe you had your hopes pinned on this being a great review. I mean, let's face it, My number one's a knockoff, Chinese made, and this guitar is as good as it gets. I love it. But if you ask the question, should I, in 2022, order an AliExpress, or there are other sites as well, but you get the idea, Rickenbacker knockoff, the best thing I can tell you is this. Every year, millions of people visit Las Vegas. And of those millions, most gamble, of course, a very small percentage, very frightfully small, win large jackpots up here on the scale. Thankfully, very few completely lose their proverbial ass and wind up down here. The vast majority fall somewhere in the middle of the spectrum, which I'm guessing more on the losing but within their allotted budget for gambling range. Some will break even, of course, and some will make a little money, but most of the people are down here. I would say that if you order one of these, you're rolling the dice in much the same way. Now keep in mind, I ordered this one off the rack, so to speak. This was a model that already existed on the website. I didn't call or email and make arrangements for something built from scratch, which you can do with a lot of builders. That's what I did with my number one. This is right off the rack. But regardless, should you do it? Well, you're rolling the dice, and you might be one of the few that wind up with a forever guitar. You might be one of the few that completely gets ripped off. But I'm guessing more you're going to be in the middle range of either acceptable or slightly below acceptable. And, as long as the bones are good, of course, you can change out every last part and file frets, file nuts or have them replaced, change out hardware, whatever you need to do. And you might wind up with something of an Epiphone quality. When I think of the standard acceptable level of inexpensive guitars, I think Epiphone and Squier, as I think most people do. No knock against either, because I own both and have owned both. But I think that that's probably what you're shooting for if you order one of these, what you're going to wind up with after a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and sweat equity, and investing in new parts and things. So I'm certainly not trying to sway you. I assume all adults out there, or near adults. I would say that if you're on a limited budget and you only have $300, $350 to spend, this isn't the way I would go about trying to do it. I'd go out and buy one of those Squiers or one of those Epiphones, or find something on the used market, a sawtooth guitar, or what's that new brand? It's Ert. I'm hearing so much about Ert. They're supposed to be great for very little money. I don't think I would recommend going this route. Now, on the other hand, if you have plenty of expendable cash, you've got extra money laying around, you want to roll the dice, you're a gambling man or woman or other, go for it. What's the worst that can happen? You'll lose your $300, $350, whatever it is. You won't be out any more than that, because that's all that most of these cost. So, yeah, I don't recommend it, but I'm not going to try to dissuade you either. You've got your own minds. So that's what's up. And as I often say, it is what it is. And it's true for everything, right? So look, I'm not going to keep you any longer. We're well past 20 minutes at this point. So look, if you didn't already get the message, like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, share, tell somebody else about this thing. There are over 250 of us now, which is more than I ever anticipated. Obviously, it's still incredibly small potatoes compared to most of the big guitar channels, but hey, you got to start someplace, Even Phil McKnight only had 200 viewers once upon a time, and now he has, several 100,000. Not that I ever see that happening with me, for various reasons, not the least being, I don't know that I'm that ambitious with this, but anything can happen, So, do all those things. Shop with caution, caveat emptor, so buyer beware. And oh, I did order a Chips and Les Paul. That'll be coming soon. You'll see an unboxing video for that soon, and then eventually, you know, a full review with sound. Fingers crossed that it's a much more pleasant and positive experience than this particular chickenbacker was. But we'll see. You know, again, it's still a gamble. So, until next time, which should be somewhere within the next 2 weeks, stay frosty as always. And rock on, chime on, have a good time. Till next time, I'm out.